be honest for a sec. Nobody really wants to picture their company in the middle of some big crisis, right? But isn't it kind of true that feeling prepared for something is way less stressful than, like, just completely ignoring the possibility? And that actually is what we're going to dive into today.
Yeah, you're hitting on something important there, that whole feeling of, oh my gosh, what do we do?
Mm.
Because a lot of people, I think, don't think about this stuff like emergency preparedness until it's already too late.
Right,
Mm.
exactly. Because by then it's kind of hard to think straight.
Exactly.
So you sent over some interesting stuff about crises control, which seems to be something that some companies are using to kind of get ahead of these situations. And just so everyone knows, this isn't like a hidden ad or anything. We're genuinely curious. What is the deal with this? What is it really?
Yeah, I get that there's so much jargon out there, but the basic idea, like at its core, is actually
Yeah.
really simple. It's like, imagine having this system, this thing, that when that fire alarm goes off or your whole network just goes poof, it helps you kind of get a grip on all the chaos.
Okay, so instead of panicking, everyone's running around like chickens with their heads cut off.
Yeah.
This helps you be like, all right, everybody, just take a breath.
It's like that moment when everything goes crazy. This gives you a way to wrangle it back in.
I like it. I like it. But I do have to ask, because the material you sent uses a lot of those words you were talking about, the jargony ones, like incident audit, fast business recovery. There's even one called emotional footprint, which, to be honest, that one kind of throws me off. Can we maybe unpack those a little?
For sure. For sure. And it is really important we do that because they're more than just like these buzzy terms,
Yeah.
right? It's about what they actually mean, what they do when you're in that crisis. So like, take mass notification, for example. It's not just, oh, let's blast out a company-wide email and hope someone reads it. We're talking about making absolutely sure that like a really important message gets to the right people, like right now, on their phones, laptops, whatever they're using at that exact moment. So no one's left in the dark.
Okay, so it's targeted information instead of just like a general,
Exactly.
And I see here in the example, the Higgins group. Apparently their whole phone system went down, which honestly, that's like the worst thing ever.
Boy.
But they used this crisis control thing to immediately get a hold of all their like VIP people, their key players, and completely bypass that whole mess.
There you go. See, that's that fast business recovery in action. Because think about it, the second you can't communicate, everything just stops. So this tool, it's like a lifeline when your usual stuff just isn't working.
Right, right. It's like that backup generator when the power goes out.
Exactly. And it's not even just about sending those messages out. Remember Incident Manager? That one's basically your crisis HQ.
Ooh.
Instead of everyone having conflicting instructions flying around, you've got this central hub where you can assign tasks. Everyone can see what's happening in real time. And it doesn't matter how crazy things get, everyone's still on the same page.
So like air traffic control, but for emergencies.
There you go.
Exactly.
I like it. Speaking of keeping things organized, there's this whole FAQ section in what you sent, and I kind of have to laugh because I feel like at this point we could have a million questions.
Right. About this whole thing.
And it's kind of interesting. They included all those FAQs almost like they already know people are going to be a little skeptical.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it makes sense when you're dealing with something this important.
Oh, absolutely. And like off the top of my head, the first thing I'm thinking is data security, because if you got this whole system that's like the key to everything during a crisis, it better be locked down tight, right?
Exactly. You don't want your whole emergency plan to become the emergency itself. And they actually do address that a bit, mentioning that they follow like all these global data protection rules and whatnot.
Okay. Phew, that's good to know. Although I gotta say, what really caught my eye was this whole onboarding in under an hour thing. Are they serious with that? I feel like I've spent longer just trying to connect to airport Wi-Fi.
Right. It does sound kind of crazy, but I guess, think about it. What good is some fancy crisis system
Yeah.
if it's so complicated that you can't even figure out how to use it when things are actually going haywire?
That's a good point.
And they do seem to get that because they really emphasize how simple and streamlined everything is. They even talk about how it can connect with systems you probably already have, like I saw Active Directory mentioned.
Yeah, because who needs another random platform to manage on top of everything else?
It's like they're trying to minimize the chaos even in the setup process, which I appreciate.
For sure, for sure. Now, I did notice something else kind of tucked away in all this information. They mentioned some awards, like Best Value Index and, there it is again, Emotional Footprint. What's the deal with those?
See, that's what I find really interesting. It's like they're not just bragging about the features and stuff. They're really highlighting the fact that this system was recognized for how it actually affects the people who are using it, which I think is kind of cool.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that because those customer testimonials they included were not your typical, oh, this product is great fluff. I specifically remember there was one quote from this, I think they were a senior manager, and they said something like, they just hit the button and then get on with their lives. And it really struck me how important that is during a crisis, just having that peace of mind.
Absolutely. And that's honestly what I think gets overlooked a lot of the time. We get so caught up in the logistics, the alerts, the procedures, all of that. But the human element, that fear, that uncertainty, those are real things, you know?
There's something else I wanted to mention. It's this anti-slavery statement they have kind of tucked away in there.
Oh, yeah.
And it seemed a little out of place at first, like we're talking about emergency systems, not,
Well,
you know.
I see what you mean, but it might not be as unrelated as it sounds at first. Think about it. When a crisis hits, it really shines a light on the things that aren't working,
Mm,
right? The weak points.
yeah.
And we tend to focus on the technical stuff, like, oh, is there a network going down?
Mm.
But what about the ethical stuff? Those vulnerabilities matter too, and that statement, to me, says this company's thinking about the whole picture.
Okay, that makes
Hmm.
sense. So it's not just about having a plan when things go wrong, but making sure that the plan itself is, I don't know, ethically sound.
Exactly. It's about building on a solid foundation from the start.
So how do we prepare for those oh crap moments, but also make sure we're doing it the right way? It's like aligning it with your values.
Right. Because how you act when things get tough
Yeah.
really shows what you stand for, right? As a company, as people,
It's like they say, you don't know who you are until.
till the heat is on, right?
Exactly. And on that note, I think that's a pretty good place to wrap things up today. From incident audits to emotional footprints, we really covered a lot.
They did.
And even those ethical questions, it's a lot to consider. But hopefully, everyone listening is feeling a little more informed, maybe even a little inspired to take action. And hey, if you want to dig into any of the details we talked about, remember we've got all those links in our show notes for you. So until next time, stay curious.